Hey, I'm Kenneth Wajda. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my photo chats. So I had a photo shoot with a couple of sisters, and the mom asked me how should we do it. And I said it's a formal portrait, so let's do it in a formal way. We don't have to use a studio, but if we're going to shoot outside by a lake, let's make it a formal portrait by them wearing formal clothing. So she said, like, how formal? Like long dresses? I go, yeah, the longer the better. Which a 15 and 16-year-old may not be thinking that that's what they want to wear for a portrait. And to show up at the lake at sunset, where everybody else is out boating and paddleboarding and all these things, and I'm asking them to come out and arrive in long dresses. But I did. And when they got there, they saw I had a Wisner 8x10 camera set up with a 12-inch lens. I had 3 8x10 film holders, so I had 6 sheets with me. And I had a Rolleiflex loaded with HP5. And the car pulls up, the mom gets out, the daughters get out, and they're kind of embarrassed and kind of awkward, and they're feeling silly to be dressed like this. And I compliment them that they're the best looking ones out there. We're going to make amazing portraits. And then I'm not a real big fan of using posing guides. I let people sort of fall into natural poses that they come up with a little direction and tweaking. And I said, let's start with the 8x10. And I put them backlit. I put up a reflector on a stand that the mom was able to kind of keep from blowing over in the wind and keep in the proper general direction. And I set up the 8x10 and I focused it and I double checked focus, and they were waiting. I was telling them not to move because it would change the focus plane, and they're not sure what this big wooden camera is. Finally get it all set up, have the cable release ready. I put the film holder in and I shot one frame. Put the dark slide back in, flipped it over, shot the second frame. And I said, okay, now we can be a little bit more spontaneous. Now we have some freedom to move. Let's turn into the front light. Let's turn to the light where the sun is coming onto your faces. It's low afternoon, evening light, so it's beautiful. Their eyes are all sparkly. And I take out the Rolleiflex and I shoot a dozen frames. And that was the shoot. And I make a point when I photograph the dozen frames to shoot them in poses, but also to shoot their in-betweens. Because sometimes the best photos I find are the ones where they're not quite posed, where they're in between poses, where they're busting out laughing. And that's a real, for me, an important photograph to make, to find that photo that stands out because it's not like all the rest, because it has a little bit of that real in it. And it goes in with the others. It doesn't mean it gets printed exclusively, but it goes in with the others. And I ended up showing the mom a nice triptych that I put together that has 3 of those Rolleiflex portraits put together and how well they would work as a trio of photographs. And she agreed. And it was such a treat to work with. And people will say, well, shooting 8x10, that's got to be crazy expensive. And shooting medium format, how can you afford all that? And I say, well, I had an 8x10 camera with 3 pieces of film. I only shot one film holder because I got the sense that the girls were a little bit impatient and I didn't want to push them with 6 frames. But I wanted to get 2, so I did. That film is Arista 100, which costs me $4 a sheet. So I'm up to $8 for the 8x10 shoot. And then the 120 film, it cost me $6 a roll. I bought it on sale at Mike's Camera. And I processed it at home myself. So if you take the $8 for the 8x10 and the $6 for the medium format film, I'm $14 in. And I processed it for pennies because I processed it at home in my kitchen sink with HC 110. It takes no time and it's not much cost. So maybe I'm up to $15. For $15, I have two 8x10 frames and a dozen Rolleiflex frames in glorious black and white that can be either hand printed or digitally printed, and every one of them has a look unlike anything that anybody can try to emulate with a digital camera. It would be like using watercolor and trying to make it look like oil paint. It just doesn't do that. That's not what it is. And it doesn't need to be, and it shouldn't be. It's not about that. But it definitely changed the way those young girls behaved, seeing this camera out there and not a digital camera, shooting 12 frames, not 12 frames per second, creating photographs that when they saw them in the gallery, they were very impressed because they looked like photographs. They had borders, they had frames, they kind of felt like something they don't see when they pick up their phone and do a selfie. So I'll put a link to the photos below. I'm very, very happy with them. And I love the ability to use film to make these kinds of portraits. And I did explain to them that I'm not only photographing them for them and their mother and their parents. I'm photographing them for generations 100 years from now that always know how cool you looked, how great you looked, and who you were. And that's why we're printing the photos, and that's why we're going to have you put them on a wall so that as families move and generations pass on, those photos will still exist. It's by far, I've explained to many people that I've photographed US presidents in the past. I've photographed celebrities and movie stars and rock stars. And I've done a lot of those kinds of photographs and portraits. But every one of them was to sell their product or their campaign or to market them in some way. And the only photographs that really matter to me are these. These are photographs that will last. And those other ones will all go away because time will make them irrelevant as new people run for office and new people become the rock stars and the celebrities. But this family will always have this portrait that is at the top level of what a portrait can be. And to me, that's a fascinating place to be. And that's really all I want to do. All right, that's today's photography talk. Take a look at the gallery. If you have not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. If you can support, hit the Patreon. Thanks to all my supporters. I appreciate you. I'll be back next time. We'll talk more photography. As always, here's the good light.